The Game Boy Advance was definitely an upgrade from the original Game Boy, but many fans don't actually realize how advanced the handheld console actually was. There are many crazy ways that GBA has been used over the years, including the ability to watch media, navigate around town, and a truly shocking way the device was used in the medical field. Before we begin, subscribe to TheGamer, and don't forget to ring that bell to become part of our notification squad, where you'll be the first to know of new content. Without further ado, here are 10 things you didn't know your old Game Boy Advance could do. Watch live TV. Before the rise of tablets and streaming sites, one of the ways you could get TV on the go is with the Game Boy Advance TV Tuner. Designed to work with the GBA SP, the TV Tuner plugged into the cartridge port of the device and turned the 2.9-inch screen into a live TV monitor. Of course, a tuner antenna was pretty limited with the ability to reach channels, but you could easily tap into a number of TV networks like ABC, Fox, and NBC. The TV Tuner was great for long road trips, times where you're stuck at a relative's house, or even sneaking some TV on the bus ride to school. If you were at home, some of the TV tuners actually featured video input connections, so you could tap into all the cable channels you wanted. This was a pretty big deal before Netflix arrived, and forever changed our lives. Stream movie files. In today's world, the Nintendo 3DS is much more than a gaming console, as players can access streaming content, web browsers, and all types of apps related to music and movies. Back in the days of the Game Boy Advance, we were lucky to have an extended cutscene featured in a game. With a little computer knowledge and a nice piece of hardware, the GBA could give a glimpse into the future of multi-purpose gaming consoles thanks to the GBA video and MP3 player. Using compact flash cards to store content, the Game Boy Advance could stream full movies and thousands of MP3 music files. The device can still be purchased today and connected to your Game Boy Advance for some retro movie watching capabilities. GBA upgrades. With the release of every new console comes the onslaught of third-party accessories. It was no different with the Game Boy Advance, and there were some pretty wacky upgrades you could place on your system. Large accessory packs often included themes like Spider-Man, and came with all types of gear to add to the Game Boy Advance. While some of the pieces were just junk, other elements were useful in providing some nice enhancements to the system. One of the best accessories to add to the Game Boy Advance console was the extended controller grip. The grip snaps into place over the Game Boy Advance and makes it easier to hold while playing games. The D-pad transforms into an analog stick, and the two input buttons are made larger and easier to press. Another great accessory to add on the GBA is a screen magnifier. Slipping right over the top of the Game Boy Advance, you can make the 2.9-inch screen look like a movie theater. Okay, we may be exaggerating a little bit, but it could make the screen look about double the size without too much warping or weird angles. There were some true gems among all the accessory junk. It was just about sorting through and choosing the best accessories to take your Game Boy gaming experience to the next level. GBA GPS. For many of us, the Game Boy Advance was great for reading maps seen in games like Pokemon Ruby or The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. No one really knew the power of the console and its ability to transform into an actual working GPS device. Showcased at conventions and trade shows like E3, the GPS would feature images, real-time data updates, and connections to multiple GPS satellites. Compact flashcards could store maps for the whole globe. Unfortunately, the Game Boy Advance GPS never went mainstream like it should have. The device made a lot of headlines at E3, but quietly disappeared like so many other electronics through the years. Wireless gaming. Introducing multiplayer has always been tough for the early days of the Game Boy. For the original Game Boy, you had to be tethered to the other system using a link cable, and the game options were very limited. The Game Boy Advance still featured the link cable, but also gave gamers some wireless options. The wireless adapter plugs into the bottom of the Game Boy Advance. While it doesn't give you Wi-Fi internet access, you did have the ability to connect to other GBA devices. Some of the best games to use the wireless receiver was with Pokemon. While battling and trading Pokemon on screen, you tap away on your GBA, get excited, and play with plenty of elbow room. You didn't have to worry about accidentally yanking out the cord or bumping into other people you were playing with. The wireless connection was great at the time, and a precursor to the advanced multiplayer action on current gaming systems. Surround sound gaming. The Game Boy Advance speaker was pretty great. If you were alone in your room, the door was shut and there was complete silence. Sometimes it was just hard to hear sound effects and music from your favorite games with so much noise around. Sure, you could pop in a pair of earbuds, but we'd much rather share our epic winning and coin-gathering sound effects with the masses. This is why one of the coolest accessories to own was the surround speaker system built for the Game Boy Advance. The speakers connected through the headphone port and would slide right over the top of the screen of the GBA SP. The speakers extended outward and required no extra battery, so your Game Boy Advance would not be heavily weighed down. Sure, they're nothing compared to a pair of wireless Beats, but back in the day, any little upgrade to the Game Boy Advance made a huge difference in the way we played. Scan cards. As a kid, collecting baseball cards was awesome. But Nintendo really upgraded the premise of card collecting with the introduction of the Nintendo e-reader. Long before DLC was a regular part of gaming, the Nintendo e-reader allowed players to get upgrades, new levels, and whole games, all depending on the cards they had. A player would purchase the e-reader for the Game Boy Advance and plug it into the cartridge port of the Game Boy. Then the player would slide cards across the e-reader like a credit card, and their content would automatically load. Just like loot crates and countless other ways games love to empty wallets, the e-readers caught on just like Nintendo thought they would. There was a limited amount of games the cards could be used with. Some of the cards included minigames for Mario Party, some included extra trainers to battle with Pokemon, and the best cards included full NES games like Super Mario Bros. And Donkey Kong 3. The biggest problem with the cards is that they were easy to lose, and a bent or damaged card would have been hard to get working again. Maybe Nintendo would have more success if they formed the cards into small toy figures of our favorite Nintendo characters, made them compatible with multiple consoles, and gave them a cool name like, I don't know, Amiibo. That was just off the top of my head. Hey, wait a second. Heart monitors. Playing a Game Boy is a great way to relax and de-stress, but who knew the console could actually help your heart? Before computers were made in micro sizes and available as small as a USB drive, medics and scientists had to get pretty creative with the way they helped treat patients. Back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, many patients were actually connected to a Game Boy Advance and didn't even know it. The screen and components of the Game Boy Advance SP were placed inside of an electrocardiogram measurement tool made by a German medical company and used all over the globe. These tools could help measure heartbeats and movements. The screen on the Game Boy would showcase menu options, readouts, and other valuable information for patients and doctors. It would be pretty hard for parents using the device to tell their kids to get off video games if they knew they were strapped to one all day long. The use of the Game Boy for these devices shows how powerful these systems truly were back in the day, and how limited advanced computer technology was. Now we wonder how many lives the Game Boy Advance actually has saved. With the ability to detect heart problems, preventative measures were most likely taken to help diagnose heart disease and serious issues. Game Boy Advance is just saving lives. N64 connections. Connecting the Game Boy Advance to a big screen really allowed you to see games in all their glory and enjoy them in a whole new way. The most common way to do this was by connecting the Game Boy Advance to the Nintendo GameCube using the Game Boy Player. The GameCube add-on was compatible with traditional Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, along with the Advance titles. Before the GameCube was released, developers needed another way to work on games, and the solution was known as the Game Boy Advance Wide Boy. The Wide Boy was made to connect directly to an N64 console. Instead of making developers look at the tiny Advance screen all day, the Wide Boy allowed television projections of games. Small details could be seen and changes could be made much easier than working on the handheld device. The Wide Boy was the only way to play GBA games on the Nintendo 64, but it was never released to the public. Developers who got their hands on the Wide Boy have sold different versions of it over the years, allowing players and collectors to transform their N64 into the ultimate home Game Boy Advance console. Lurk around various auction websites and different video game collectors to see if you can get your hands on this rare piece of equipment. Or just take the easy route and emulate your favorite GBA games. Touchscreen access. The Nintendo DS really changed the way players interact with their handheld gaming devices. The use of the touchscreen added a lot of gimmicks, but it also added improvements to menu navigation and the way some games are played. The use of the stylus and touchscreen options expanded the opportunity for drawing, writing, and other fun apps. But why bother with a Nintendo DS or 3DS when you could transform a Game Boy Advance into a touchscreen device? Sure, the touchscreen process required a lot of hacking and customization, but it's still pretty cool to use the Game Boy Advance touchscreen in action. Using the same type of stylus found on the Nintendo DS, a hacker was able to draw on the screen of the GBA. There was no game interactions, but showcasing the possibilities Nintendo had at the time meant we could have been using touchscreen devices years and years ago. The screen is far too small for true finger touches, but a thin stylus would have worked perfect, especially for a variety of puzzle games or word games. Either way, it's still cool seeing the Game Boy Advance get explored for use on a variety of platforms. Players are always finding new ways to use the system, allowing the legacy of the GBA to live on forever. Well, there you have it. What's your favorite feature of the Game Boy Advance? What facts surprised you the most? Are there any we missed? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to TheGamer so you can stay up to date with all our awesome videos. Thanks for watching.